Welcome to Small Town Big Life Podcast, coming to you from the bait shop behind Grace Fellowship Church here in Avis. Been gone for a while, but now we're back. Have Mark Vollman with us today as a guest, and my wife, Grace Collins, is making her debut performance on... Or performance? What? I guess it's not a performance. She's not going to juggle appearance? Appearance or something? Yeah,
tap dancing.
She don't have any juggling pins or anything that I know of. So, yeah. So, all right, let's get into it. We talked about, Mark and I were talking the other day in church about kind of like the topic of the emergence of, evil, basically becoming more dominant in all forms of media, like movies, film, everything, and how it's like accelerating. So we said, that might be an interesting topic because we've been absent for a long time on the podcast. And now we're just getting our footing back. We've had some church growth, a lot of things happen, a lot of good things. But so that is our topic today. I have a list, because we're organized, of things to talk about. Of course, this is just a basic springboard. So, Mark, since you thought of the topic, why don't you want to go ahead and come out of the gate and get us rolling here?
Yeah, I was talking to you earlier about it, and also at church, that it just seems like since the beginning of the year that everything's been cranked up from like level 3 as far as evil in the media and in society, and the focus on that, to probably like a level 8 or 9 now. So it's just, I can't put my finger on what changed. Something's definitely changed. We're supposed to keep track of what's going on in the world around us as Christians. Here we are. I mean, something's definitely happening. So
somebody's cranked up the volume, and basically in humanity on the hostility towards God.
Yeah, and towards Christians. That's all. It's all lumped into one great big thing. But yeah, it's affecting everything from politics to media to just everyday life for people. So yeah, things have definitely amped up in the last few months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know when we watch movies at home, like we talk about that a lot. Or we see film, especially surprising places. We were talking about being surprised about it, like on Disney.
Language.
The whole, language is...
Mm-hmm.
Well, another example of it is there's a big change in focus into the exorcism stuff. There's several movies out right now. I'm not saying they're good, bad, or indifferent to it, but it's just everybody's pushing that topic.
I know, and I think it's people are always, they got this preoccupation, like they're fascinated with the scary stuff. Like I know that a lot of people who came to Christ did so because they started to hear and learn and become interested in the book of Revelations, because they hear the Antichrist and the dragon and all. It's like the scary elements. And then, the real ones, once they start learning about it, well, the real ones, the ones who continue in the faith, I guess, stay once they learn everything else. But there is something, I think, appealing about things that scare people. But the thing is, like what we were talking about, the world, which do you glorify and which do you identify as clearly evil? Grace, you want to say something?
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of stuff you're thinking.
Yeah, well, there is.
Get up on your mic.
There's a lot of stuff that's negative in the world today, and I think we've removed God from society. So, what's the cause? I'd say removing God and the motive in the heart,
Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, I agree. That's you take God out of the mix, and for sure that's what's going to happen. So,
some of it's like a train wreck effect. People just are focused on, like, they're driving by an accident on the road, they've got to look at it. I mean, it can be horrible, and they still have to look at it. So some of it's that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And with what Grace said too, it's removing God, but there's definitely. I'll use the word hatred towards God now, and that's coming out. I mean, sure. It's not this, we're just going to ignore God and we're going to go about doing our thing. It's now we're against it, and we're going to protest this.
The one thing that really worries me is people don't realize how evil is and how much, spiritually speaking, we are hated. But that hate, you can't even fathom it, right?
Yeah. Everything. We were just talking about everything being backwards, from normal, I don't know, Christian sensibilities, biblical sensibilities, man, woman, and then the world says, nope, it's man, man, now or woman, woman. And now women are celebrated for being masculine and ridiculed for being feminine, and men are celebrated for being feminine and ridiculed for being masculine. And people are going to end up in struggle. So I don't like go after one person and say, hey, you've had this struggle in life, you're a demon and you're going to burn in hell. So this isn't like attacking someone who's gay or something like that. It's what is professed, what is taught as right and wrong is confusing people and confusing kids. And it's not just sexual, because now that's what's in the headlines. People are talking, they're talking about the transsexual stuff a lot, but there's an amp up in violence too. And it's like, and in some of these notes, some of these ideas for talking points, I think somewhere in there it talks about, I know in storytelling you have to have a bad guy to know who the good guy is, and they have to blow up the Death Star. They have to, because we need to know who the heroes are.
It's no fun if they didn't.
Right.
Despite the fact that there were probably innocent contractors on there who had nothing to do with this war, but we had to see. We had to see but I get the concept. Here's the bad guys. But sometimes I think we can all agree when we're watching something, we think, I didn't need to see that.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually a really great analogy, because there was two evil people on the Death Star.
Yeah.
And look at all the other people that were just going about their daily lives. Got wasted when that got blown up.
Exactly. Yeah, I know.
So there's collateral damage.
There is.
Yeah.
But wouldn't you agree that most of the movies now that are in that genre, there's no hope at the end? You can watch a movie and you have some kind of glimpse of some hope, but now most of them are really dark and there's no conclusion.
I am glad you brought that up, because I have a very interesting take on that. That is true. I've watched a lot of movies where the end is just dismal. Like in the 70s, the 70s, there were a lot of movies like that. There's just no hope. It's dark. It's gloomy. This is terrible. And Stephen King, for the longest time, I used to rail on Stephen King and say he doesn't know how to write endings, because every time he does, evil either prevails or there's a strong insinuation that it will. And then I heard him talk about that, and I changed my tune, because I saw him in an interview talking about how he ends stories and he said something, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact words, but the point he made, he goes, everyone thinks the good people are good, but what if everything in the Bible's right? What if we all are sinners and we're all deserving of punishment? And that means even if you think you're a good person, you're going to get punished too. And you're not getting out of this. You're not getting out of this unscathed, because everyone is not perfect. Everyone is a sinner, and people that you don't think should pay sometimes do. And I thought, wow, didn't see that coming. And I thought, I started to think about it. I thought, man, sadly he's right. But I don't know. Jackie, I know you got a ton of stuff in your head. We talk about this kind of stuff.
We talk about this stuff all the time, but I just know that, like, to me, when we started talking about this topic, off camera, it was like, before it was for shock value, and it was something that was incredibly shocking or graphic or violent, but it was one thing, and it reverberated and everybody talked about it. But now there's so much stuff that I don't even notice, then it's like, oh wait, what about that? We were talking about, there's a Netflix show called Lucifer, and I've never actually seen it, but he's a Casanova and he owns a nightclub, and they did like 8 seasons of it.
Yeah, somebody at church here told me they watched it and said it was pretty good, and I was like, I knew about the comic book, and I just
it's entertaining, but it's not. It's
have
really
you seen
hard.
it?
Yes, it's really hard to distinguish who's good and who's bad in it.
Well, it's the numbing effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Numbing of the moral sense. They do.
He's not portrayed as the evil person. Blah blah blah. It's more of a gray. Michael's not so cool either. I mean, it's one of those things.
Right.
So it's like they kind of smeared the painting, if you're going to do it that way.
That's a good analogy.
That's
they
an excellent
the painting.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. That is
Not to be a wet blanket on this, but I like history, so I read and study stuff that's way back when. we aren't that much different than the situation that Paul was in or the early Christians were in, because there were pagan temples, all kinds of worship going on, all kinds of brutal things happening around them in their society. So we've had it nice for so long that we are almost back to where, like, they were living. I mean, that kind of stuff. People are getting eaten by lions. Yay, that's entertainment.
No, and that's a good
Right.
point, because well, back in Bible college, we talked about this kind of stuff. And yeah, you're right. And Paul, to know how to address cultures, would examine the cultures. Like in the Greeks, he looked at all the statues and all the gods they worshipped and all this stuff, so he would know what he was going to be up against when he talked to them. And the reason that came up is because they would ask us in school, presumably someday you may be the pastor of a church. So what is going to be your position when somebody says Harry Potter is evil and you shouldn't watch it? And, he went around the room, and which is another telling tale about the times. I'll just say this real quick. We started out with that class in ministry with 20 people and ended with 4. Mm-hmm. And he said, look at the state of the world. Look how many people made it this far. And we called it the core 4 at the end. But anyway, and we pretty much all agreed in different words. And I said, well, Harry Potter is a fantasy story. It's not real, and you accept that when you go into it. I go, I don't see where it's professing witchcraft. I go, I see where it's taking these characters in this genre, but it's clearly defining good and evil. Mm-hmm. I said, now if you teach that witchcraft and all this stuff is something you could pursue, then that's evil, because it's not true, first of all. But when you take it's a device for telling a story. And it's not, to me, I never watched it and thought this show is promoting witchcraft.
Right.
I thought it's taking old fables and stories and tales. And
my counter would be is C.S. Lewis, Narnia.
Narnia.
Is J.R.R. Tolkien and all that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same stuff. The difference is Harry Potter is fantasy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Real witchcraft is not like that.
No, it's not. And that's why it's important for, folks to govern with their kids. Hey, just so you know, I mean, the whole concept, Tolkien told Lewis, he said, everything we tell is just a different version of one true story.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And he's talking about the God, Jesus, man story. And he said, all we do is tell different versions of it when using different storytelling devices. But good and evil, I think I have in here, I don't know if everyone has the same view on this, but the same definition of the anti-hero. But I'm going to tell you my definition, and you can see, the birth of the anti-hero started to become on the scene in the 60s, 70s, and the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. Now it's super, super popular. And basically, how I define the anti-hero from film and storytelling is the guy you're rooting for who tries to do the right thing, but doesn't always do it in a good way and doesn't always have concern for who pays in the process. And, in the comics, Deadpool would be an anti-hero. The Punisher is an anti-hero. Because you're like, yeah, he's doing the right thing. And then you go, oh, wow, dude, take it easy. I mean, but that's kind of does everyone agree with that definition of what you think of an anti-hero is?
That's fair.
So it's not a villain. But
his motives or his ways he's handling it, it's questionable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people even consider in the comics Batman an anti-hero because in the old days when you would read the comic books, I'm not a DC fan, but I'm a comic book nerd. Superman was always about justice and doing the right thing, he was about basically second chances, giving people, arresting them, and Batman was about justice.
Yeah,
right.
He's the Dark Knight.
Yeah,
right.
The Dark Knight, and so you had the contrast when those two would talk in the comics. I don't know how much of a nerd you are with comic books.
Batman.
Doomsday killed Superman in the comic books.
Yep.
Okay, so there's one of the most iconic conversations in comic books, but that defines these two is Superman talking to Batman, and I can't believe I'm going down this rabbit hole. And he says, "You're not the law. You don't get to punish people." And Batman says something like, "People need to pay for their crimes," and Superman says, "I believe in second chances." Batman says, "I believe in justice."
Yep.
And Superman says, what happened to second chances? And Batman says, "Let's give Doomsday a second chance." And I thought, pow, take that. And so you understand the mentality of people. Like I do it. I feel this way when I watch people committing crimes on TV, and I just think they get off too easy. And I think that's not right. And I preach, and I mean this too. We have to be careful when we say we want justice when what we really want is revenge.
Right.
And because if you pray for justice, God's going to bring it to you first.
Yeah.
And so we always have to be careful in our hearts how we look at it. But the way you and I talked about the world is now, it's hard not to get enraged at people that do heinous, horrible, violent, terrible things to people. And so I think that's a contributing factor to the emergence of so much of it in media. But the difference is they're glorifying it.
Right. Well, it talks about us battling against the principalities and powers,
Yes.
Yep.
and it's not in the flesh. But it's hard when it is in the flesh.
Yeah.
So I mean, that makes it. Yeah, I'm a dark knight. I want to do justice.
Yeah.
I'm
I know.
all for that. And it's
vigilante.
hard to be a Superman and say, yeah, it's okay, and get a second chance.
Right.
And incidentally, later in that conversation, Batman says, "You're not even human."
Yeah.
I thought, yep.
That's a jab.
That's a jab because he's an alien.
Yeah.
Grace hears all my thoughts on this stuff because we sit around in our living room. Something comes up. We might talk about something for a half hour. We talk about this kind of stuff all the time. She has a lower frustration tolerance than I do. Like I can watch something and some of it'll bounce off me. It doesn't penetrate me, and she'll go, "Don't turn. I don't want to watch this." You know, somebody might say something or what say you, Jackie, about the anti-hero?
No, I completely agree. I mean, but there's a time for entertainment, and there's a time for storytelling and creative storytelling, and then there's just crap
Yes.
for crap's sake, and
Yeah.
and just let's do the most extreme, disgusting,
Shock value.
shocking thing that we possibly can.
And it's almost ineffective anymore.
Right.
Because you used to be shocked. You'd go, "Oh," and now you just go, "Really?
Yeah.
No, just no."
Yeah.
And you're not shocked anymore. I think people get more irritated.
Yeah.
I do.
Absolutely.
I'm not a zombie guy because, first of all, if a body was in that state, it'd be falling apart all over the place.
Yeah.
So I mean, I understand why people enjoy that. I mean, it's part of that. But I sit there, I'm like, his head would have fell off 3 feet back there. He wouldn't be chasing anybody. So what's going on with that? So I don't enjoy that thing. Back to there's the entertainment value of the shock value and the gore and the slasher movies and all that stuff. Real life's totally different. And
Way different.
Yeah, and a lot more
Disturbing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There in film, what's far more effective when it comes to comedy and terror is when it's insinuated than when it's shown or spoon-fed. Because the human imagination, because like you said, people know how disturbing humans are. And that's why in film, the geniuses are the ones that don't force the images down your throat.
Well, that's like Hitchcock was
Right,
brilliant at that.
exactly.
Because
Brilliant.
He messed with your mind by not showing you what. So then you were like out of control because what's really going on? Your brain's going crazy and all that.
And film school, they told us about, I didn't know this was a real phrase, but it is now. It's called the Spielberg look. And they were talking, they call it that. People still call it that. And you've seen it because you've seen Jaws and Close Encounters where he's like, capture the look on the person's face rather than what's going on. They're, the spaceship comes, or the shark comes up and he's looking at the shark. They call that the Spielberg look. When you get the expression on their face, the audience sees that. They know what that means.
The very first movie when the girl's attacked, you don't see the shark, you don't see the blood.
That's right.
All you see is her screaming and flailing around the water.
Yeah.
If you turn the sound off, you're kind of like sitting there watching what's going on here.
Yeah.
But that's it right there.
Yeah, and you don't need to spoon feed people images. My wife's sore spot. We make
What's your
jokes.
sore spot?
We make jokes.
What?
Well, it's harsh language. Like when they'll say one thing, they'll say it again. But by the time if they keep doing it, she's like, turn this off. What kills me is when I see these young filmmakers do stuff where there's gratuitous sex and gratuitous profanity, and then they say, well, I'm trying to portray real life. Now listen to me. I've been in a band. I recorded 3 albums. I've been all around this country. I've been with some of the lowest character people you can think of and good people, and I've seen and heard everything. And a normal day for me was not constant F-bombs and nudity and sex everywhere. That was not real life. And I mean, you would have to be in a depraved nation So, I mean, so I think it's a cop-out when they go, well, I just want it to look like real life. I know people cuss. I know people do things they shouldn't, but it's not
Nonstop.
It's not constantly and
Right.
nonstop. And when I see these films where they do that, and he said, well, I'm trying to make a realistic portrayal. I'm like, no, that's not a realistic portrayal, bro. That's not, I've been around. Most folks understand these things. They've been around enough to know that's not real life. So which tells me, you wanted to put that in there.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Right.
you, bro. Don't put that on real life.
Right.
I mean, and then it does get irritating because you kind of lose your ability to suspend disbelief and enjoy the story because like this director's preoccupied with this.
Well, the proof
Yeah.
against that is try acting like that out in public. See what happens.
Yeah,
there.
no doubt, no doubt. And even when when we're all young people, you act a certain way around your friends' parents.
Absolutely.
And you act a certain way around authority figures. You know when to show respect.
Yeah, you learn when to say things and when you can't, and when you're out with the guys on the football field, you talk different.
It is
Right.
different.
That's-
Right.
Yeah. So
My wife has a real. So we joke now. I joke with her relentlessly. We'll be watching something. If they show a girl wearing a skirt to her knee, I go, Grace, porn, and she's. Because she always says that. She goes, oh, here we go with the porn. She does an old lady voice.
Oh, jeez.
Well, she's kind of kidding, but I know what she means. She's like, she's pointing out the gratuitous stuff that just kind of really doesn't need to be there. Why don't you speak for yourself? I'll quit putting words in your mouth.
Yeah, like you said, I don't think that things need to be spoon-fed to people.
Right.
You can, imagine it yourself. So that's
here we'll jump a little bit. Video games that the teens are all playing.
Oh, yeah.
I've played it since it was Pong. Okay, so I was
Me too, man.
Oh, yeah.
That was the first thing I've had.
Me
So
too.
I've been involved in that all along. When you're playing an RPG game and the guys are always in armor and all buffed up and got all, and then the women come out and they're in a bikini armor thing. Nobody in the real world would fight
No,
with a bikini on.
that's for 12-year-old boys.
Right.
That's
Absolutely.
only for
That's
12
why it's there.
There's an audience for
that's
it.
why I say. Now, when it comes to video games, I'm a strong believer that there is plenty of good in video games as much as there is bad. There is like when you have a game that teaches, like The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. I haven't played the new one yet, but it just came out.
He pre-ordered it.
at midnight.
It came out midnight last night. I haven't even checked to see if it's downloaded.
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
no,
you did.
I'm a pastor, and I'm telling you, I did not. I haven't touched it. I haven't. My day's been. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But the point about the video games is, if it has an economy, if good and evil is clearly defined, this is clearly good, this is clearly evil. And you have to solve problems, do puzzles, and there's multiple ways to solve the problems. If it exercises brain muscles and it's entertaining, I think that's good. When it's just blood and guts and slaughter and cut the heads off zombies and half naked chicks the whole time, I'm like, that's not. I don't see where that's really doing anybody any good. Now, I don't even. I mean. Some of those games that get by the parents, I don't think the parents are following the kids into the rooms. And we were talking about the emergence of evil in media. Grand Theft Auto glorifies. I've never even played Grand Theft Auto, and I didn't know how bad it was until I saw the YouTube videos of people playing it. And I'm like, this is, you kill hookers and you
Steal cars and
You can-
and you
can
all the
have
things
sex
you want
with the hooker.
all the
Yes.
things you want teenagers to be doing, going out and stealing cars.
But that's the good guy. That's your character.
your
You're
good
playing
guy.
that dude. And I'm like, this isn't even an anti-hero. This is just like a thug, man. And I
But
don't
that's
know.
why
I'm
it's so
talking
popular.
a lot. Let somebody else do
That's
it.
why it's so popular in gangster culture, though, because you are a thug.
Yeah.
So-
I would like to think when they designed that game, probably not true, but when they designed it, that was, okay, we're going to make something you can't do in normal life. The problem is they think that's normal life.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, that's true, and it's things too. When Grace and I watch a lot of we watch like no, it's not 48 hours. It's called the first 48. That's what
The first
Yeah.
48.
we watch those kind of
It's
shows.
crime documentary.
Yeah, the real ones where the cameras and everything. And one thing that's heartbreaking over and over and over is to see people that are 17, 18, 19 years old, and to them that is a normal life. And you think, man, all the things you could have been if somebody could have reached you like a pastor or somebody. But kids now, some of these kids you look at, they're hollow. They don't want to hear it, man. They're not going to have it. Anything if you try to reach them, that's heartbreaking. But I think, stuff like that's not helping.
Right. We had a foster child back in the day, and she stole things, and I said to her one time, because this doesn't compute in my head. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. How can I help her? So I straight up asked her. I said, "Why are you doing it?" She says, "Because I have to." And I said, "What do you mean you have to?" She goes, "This is normal. I have to." And I was like, it just completely messed with my head.
Wow.
I was like, she was honest, about it, and she felt that she had to. And I said, "You don't have to do that."
Right.
But the culture shock for me was, I would have never even thought that. That is not the answer I expected her to give.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. It didn't matter what she was taking. It had no value. She was stealing stuff that was worthless.
Right. It's just.
But she was
like
just
an
doing
impulse
it because she felt she had to. That to survive in this world, she had to do that. So you see that in that first 48 hours.
Yeah.
The people involved in that think they have to do that.
Yeah. They feel like it's part of their. It's I don't know. It's like it's part of their call. It's what you do.
Right.
It's what you do. I'm just looking at the list to see if what was the first impressionable story, any media format, so that would mean book, movie, or anything, where you notice the bad guy or evil was being glorified and championed as the victor in the story. Well, that's kind of a tough one, I guess. Yeah, none of us will remember the first, but
Right.
Well, I can talk about that. Back in the 20s when the black and whites came out,
Right.
before they had any controls on anything, you'll see a big, like Hollywood is today, a big surge on just off the wall stuff. It wasn't anything good. It was all right off the thing. And then I forget what the name of the law was that they enacted that stopped that. When they actually started putting
The ratings.
yeah,
Yeah,
well,
'cause
not even the ratings. There was a name.
there were
that's a
rules.
name.
Yeah, they had rules that you couldn't.
Well, some guy's name is the law.
Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't portray police as bad. You couldn't kill police. You couldn't. Oh my gosh, there was all kinds of rules about the movies that things you couldn't do.
Before that, they were doing everything.
They were doing everything, and
yeah.
you know what? At the time, people say, "Wow, that was terrible." But other people admit that it forced them to dig deeper into their creativity,
Right.
for storytelling, because they're like it didn't work against them as writers. It made them better because of it.
Whereas now it's whatever crap sticks to the wall.
Yeah, whatever.
Let's film it.
Yep.
Well, you're seeing it go. They're lax. They're getting lax on the rules again.
Oh, the rules are gone. There's no more rules anymore.
Yeah.
Now, just on TV, stuff that used to be an R-rated movie.
Yeah, it's amazing to me what's on TV.
When young people hear us, they're going to say, "You guys sound so old," because I think they're not seeing the impact of it the way we did, because we've got to see this generation in this room collectively was here, before microwaves, or right at the emergence when there was CD. So I think we've got to see the largest span of the big technological jumps, and with it, the leniency in media of what's allowed now. And so, if a younger person's listening to this or watching this,
Yes, I'm old. I know it.
You can take something from it.
I
Trust
remember
me.
black and white TVs. I remember when you used to have to get up to go turn the channel. Yeah. I remember when there was tubes in the back of them. Yeah, I'm old. I know.
I worked with a young dude once, and I was talking to him about, because he said something about your generation had the greatest music, and we started talking, and this was a few years, 6 years ago. At the time, he was 19, and I said, yeah. So we started talking about the differences in my generation and his when I was his age, and the thing that really blew his mind was surprising to me. It was that the TV signed off at night at 1 in the night. He just couldn't get past that. He said, I can understand 3 channels. I just can't. Why would you just sign off? And that just blew him away. And I thought that was funny, because I didn't think that would be the standout.
Yeah, they rolled up the sidewalks and everybody went to bed.
Yeah, national anthem, and off you go.
Big Indian head on the TV.
Yeah.
Things were closed on Sunday.
Yeah. A lot of things were closed on Sunday.
But think about when John Lennon said that the Beatles were bigger than Jesus.
Yeah, but he was being tongue in cheek.
I know he was, but look at how people reacted to that.
Visceral. They were mad.
And now you've got Yeezy. Yeezy.
What's that?
Puff Daddy.
Oh boy.
Now he's
He changed his name again.
Whatever.
Yeah, I heard
Not
about
Puff Daddy. The other guy. The guy who was married to the Kardashian. That one.
I know.
Yeezy, Yeezus, whatever he is.
Well, rap now is like what rock and roll started to be.
Kanye.
Rock and rolls came
Kanye,
out,
yeah.
started to be
That's
like rebellion and girls and rebelling against authority and all that stuff. And rap has now, because everything gets bigger and more extreme. And I mean, rock and roll, Jerry Lee Lewis, and when you think about when he came out, before that there was big band music.
Right.
Now you got a grown man in a suit looking at 16-year-old girls saying, "Shake it, baby, shake it." People minds were blown.
And
Lost
marrying
their
a
mind.
14-year-old.
Lost their mind.
Grabbed
Right.
his children and ran.
Yeah,
Right.
they grabbed their children and ran. And Elvis Presley and all, they'd never seen anything like this. They're like, the devil's here now, alive and well. And so, and then now rap is, I mean, all of it keeps going. It's like Mark was talking about earlier. It's all going faster.
Yes.
Right.
It's
right.
going, it's all picking up way more momentum.
Remember Marilyn Manson?
Yeah.
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 Marilyn Manson came out and it was like, oh, wow. And
Shock
turn it
value.
off. I don't want to see it. And they're showing the videos after 10. And now it's like, oh, it's Marilyn Manson.
Yeah, you see this stuff now and you're like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then now people, I don't even get, when film or songs, because the cool thing to do is to bash Christ or Christianity. And it's like, there's no shock value for me anymore. It's just, I feel bad for the person. I feel
Yeah,
like,
I'm not shocked by it.
I know, I think someday, I think to myself, dude, you're going to understand someday you're wrong. I mean, it's just going to happen. And I don't go, oh my.
Grab the children and run. Yeah, I'm not.
Right.
Poor
Right.
thing.
I mean, I've in my life, I've read books that I didn't want to read, and I would sit them down and pick it back up because I'm going to get through this as bad as it is.
Yeah.
Rules for Radicals, Saul Ulinsky. I mean, it was one I had to put it down and pick it back up, and I'm going to get through this because I want to understand. I want to be able to say I read it, and I want to understand what it's about.
Right.
So I will force myself in little bits and pieces to do this and finish it, and I finished it, and I don't. I didn't agree with anything in it, but I feel I understand because, like Paul, I want to understand when I'm talking to somebody.
You have to.
You have to be able to meet them on their terms.
Right.
Right. Yeah, you do. You have to understand the culture. And, they used to tell us, stay engaged in the culture. If a kid's in your class or a person's in your church and they say, hey, I saw this movie or something, they go, obviously you don't go out and pour smut in your head all the time, but you need to stay in touch with what people are doing. So when they talk to you, you're not have your head buried in the sand. And so I think I understand that concept, like Paul, and like what you just said. You need to know what they're thinking, what they're teaching, and how they're approaching it if you are to effectively counter it. So like my wife disagrees with me sometimes on that. Sometimes she's like,
I'll support you, but I don't necessarily agree.
There's a limit on it. You have to you have to be grounded. You have to know where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And like with that book, I had to take it in little bits at a time because it was damaging. It's not good stuff. But I can sit there and do that because I want to understand. I want to understand where something's coming from. I did 4 years of chat room for Christianity Online for AOL.
yeah.
And I had everybody in the chat room. It was a Christianity Online chat room, but it was a theology chat room.
Right.
And you had everybody from atheists to Wiccan to all the different groups, all the different flavors of Christianity. And they're all in there bashing each other and knocking around.
I don't get that.
It was more of a, I don't know, it's more of just a free-for-all than anything. But you did get into good conversations in there.
Yeah.
And
It can happen.
Yeah, it can happen. It didn't happen all the time. Most of the time, you're just trying to police the thing and trying to keep people from screaming at each other. But if I'm talking to a Wiccan, I've got to understand where they're coming from.
Right.
Or otherwise, I'm just sitting there going,
No, you're right. You should. I posted something on our page. I post about once a year about God, and we had to learn all that stuff, all the different worldviews and religions and all that to understand them. So you're right. You do need to. They're not going to want to talk to you if they think you don't know anything. I debated an atheist once, and I said to him, because he said, well, the Bible says this, the Bible says that, and a couple times I said, that's not what the Bible says. I go, you need to study my source material as well as I study yours, and then we can have a more productive conversation.
A real conversation,
Right.
and a discussion about it.
Yep. So, yeah. Well, Grace thinks.
I don't do Wiccan because I talk to them though. That was my point. I mean, I understand where they're coming from.
Oh yeah, sure.
I'm I do it to look for holes.
Sure. She sounded sarcastic. Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
I don't believe you.
No, listen. No, I completely understand. When I was younger, I investigated all forms of theology, and I was Wiccan, and I was Buddhist, and you finally come around to what the truth actually is, right?
Right.
And so I understand where you're coming from.
Right. I look for the holes in it,
Yep.
not to beat them up about it, but to help. So I have an in. Okay, if I see a hole in this, whatever your religion is, okay, I can address that hole.
Right.
And I can say, Christianity fills that spot.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So that's why I look at it that way. I mean, it's I don't want to say enemy because they're not enemies, but know your enemy. I mean, you gotta know what, and it's back to the Paul thing. You have to know the culture and the people you're talking to, or they're not going to talk to you.
It's a respectful thing too.
Yeah.
I mean,
big time.
You don't, let's like you talk about in service all the time. You're not going to engage with people and sway people by just, just
Being more loud doesn't make you more right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you can have a respectful conversation with someone and say, okay, I understand where you're coming from. I really do, because I read this thing and I get it. Here's my side. They're going to engage with you in conversation a lot more than they are if you're just going to say, oh, you're wrong and it's evil and blah, 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 blah.
If they respect, we were just talking about that. I say, if you allow your emotions to control your mouth, it assassinates all the authority of your position.
Exactly.
And people aren't going to want to listen to you. And
I just heard a quote the other day too, that if you actually understand a subject, you can explain it in the most simplest form.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a rule. So if you don't understand something that's really complicated for you to explain it, you really don't understand.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, and on the other side of the coin, like the emergence of evil in media, I think it's also, there's a mirror up to humanity when we see that. We look at the media, the songs, the music. There's more bad guys. There's more devils. There's more sex. There's more. It's going faster and faster and faster. And then there's also stuff popping up like The Chosen,
Absolutely.
which is countering it. And that feels good. I have a friend who's fairly new in his faith and his Christian. Not a new Christian, but he's new in terms of looking into it more. And I told him about it. He immediately latched onto it and loves it. And I think that's an effective tool. There's stuff out there that may not necessarily be for me, like there's some Christian films and stuff like that, but it does reach people. So all hope's not lost, I guess, but I do see, like you were talking about the momentum. You said when we were talking earlier before we got in here, how since the beginning of this year, you've noticed a really large acceleration in this type of stuff, like more so.
Right. And and like I said, I'm not surprised by it as a Christian. I'm not surprised by it. I'm not going to run off into the dark and call in a hole and hide from it.
No.
Right.
I'm like, okay, this is where we're at. We knew it was going to be that way. I'm okay with it. And what can I do? So.
Right. But you also said, which I agree with wholeheartedly, that there is more of a division.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The side, there's no gray area anymore. You're either, and you're seeing that more and more, you're either one or the other.
Yes.
I mean, the lines are definitely being drawn.
They're being drawn deep.
Yep.
People are being told, you have to pick
Get off
sides.
the fence.
It's like now, we live in a small town, but typically people want to know where you stand on things right away. Now at church, we don't experience that as much because everyone knows pretty much why we're here. But when you meet people out in the world, they want to know where you stand. That's why I don't do stuff like I don't put any bumper stickers on my truck. I don't nothing at all. Because I know there's some wacko out there that'll see one, won't like it, and want to stab my tire.
Right.
So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it says Jesus, I love Jesus, or if it says something dirty. Somebody will have an issue with it. And I always think it's so important for people to talk with one another like you said, in a respectful way. But people want to know where you stand. The lines of division are being drawn up, and they're being drawn up partially by us. I mean, Christians. I think I told my wife this. I said, this sounds cynical, but the doors on the ark are closing. And I mean, because Christians are like, we're trying, but you're making it harder and harder. You're burning our churches. You're killing babies. You're butchering our children. We're going to have to preach to you from the top deck because we're closing the doors on the ark now, but we'll pull you up. I mean, that's my own weird analogy. But some of them aren't having a choice. They have to protect themselves, their churches, and their families because the world is it's reaching maximum hostility towards Christians. I think. And I don't even think we've scratched the surface of what's to
I don't
come.
think. Yeah, that's what I was just going to say.
There's going to be people arrested.
Yeah, you're going to. Well, and that happened in Canada this year with the pastors up there and stuff. But I mean, so I never thought that I would live to see that happen.
I didn't
When
either.
I saw that on the news, I was like, wow.
And hate speech.
Yeah, yeah.
To call,
You can't say this. You can't say that.
what did you think about
The people that are screaming tolerance the most are the most intolerant people in the world.
Exactly.
Big time. And then, people are afraid to say Jesus. Like in the National Day of Prayer on TV, they go, "Oh, they got a National Day of Prayer." Well, it doesn't mean nothing if you don't mention Jesus. And 2 years ago, not a word was said about Jesus. Everything's about God. Okay,
Yep.
God. Let's talk about God. Let's talk about. Is anybody gonna say Jesus? And nope, can't say that. But you can say Allah. You just can't say.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know.
Well, no, I'm free speech. I'm all for that, and that means that they get free speech too. So,
Yeah.
and that means if they want to say hateful things, that's free speech too. So,
Right.
I'm all for that.
But they're not getting arrested, and we are.
That's the problem.
And we're teaching salvation, and they're teaching genocide.
Right.
And so that's, when what the Bible says, when they call good evil and evil good. And here's what kills me is when people say, well, the Christians, the holy wars were the bloodiest wars. They don't know anything about the wars because I tell people, if a Christian, because they say Christians blow up abortion clinics, I go, people that do this aren't Christians. So the minute you murder someone in the name of Christ, you have revoked your Christian card.
Right.
That's not a Christian. People that do that are claiming to be Christians. As soon as they do that, that is the opposite of what a Christian stands for. So let's fix that right out of the gate and stop saying Christians profess that because they don't. And that's what drives me nuts when people call Christian hate speech because of a guy blows up an abortion clinic and says he does it in the name of Christ. And then as if the rest of us are going, yay, good job. When we're not, we're like, no, man, you don't kill people. So but they love to perpetuate that, but they won't go on about the Muslim stuff. Partially because they know they'll get their heads chopped off if they do, because they'll hunt them down and kill them.
Things up.
And, and they do blow things up. And I don't know. It's. I never thought I'd see the day either, where Christianity was called hate. And like you was talking about Canada, and I said arrests are going to be coming. They'll start profiling Christians as they're already trying to.
They already are.
Right-wing extremist groups, but it's not to the point, well, they'll come to the house, but that's next.
Oh, yeah.
That's next. Are you a member of this church? Yeah. Okay. Well, it's been discovered this is a hate group, and you're gonna, then they're gonna want to know what weapons do you have, what guns are registered, and it's.
I lost them in a boat.
Yeah, I lost them in a boat.
I don't have any weapons.
Yeah. Disarming.
I mean, that's
I'm
definitely
talking
another rabbit hole.
That's-
I'm
Yeah.
dominating too much of this. So we were talking about media. Let me see what else we got on here about media.
Well, I have a question for Grace because
Go.
I know you watch a lot of like documentaries and things and true things. And there's been a resurgence of the things about serial killers and the things about R. Kelly and the things about all those different things. And people are watching them because they genuinely want to know what happened. But at the same time, is it normalizing this behavior because we're watching it on TV?
Oh, I bet. Yeah, definitely. It also, you have to check your heart. What's your motive for watching it? Are you getting a thrill out of it, or do you really want to know? Are you really concerned about what's happening to this person or this family or
Right.
what? So, yeah. It just depends on your heart. What do you?
So wait, I think I think two different things are happening.
Okay.
Here. I know what you're talking about, but you said R. Kelly.
Well, R. Kelly is yeah.
So you're talking because I know what she's talking about.
What's she talking about?
Well, she's talking about watching these true crime shows and stuff like that, and just kind of being concerned about the people wanting to know what happened. But I think,
Or are you making
correct
a
me if I'm
list
wrong.
on how to put somebody in a barrel and make their body dissolve?
Well,
right?
I think Jackie's kind of talking about, because the stories she's talking about are ones disturbing, like
Yeah.
sexually and So I think she's saying, like, even though when you watch this, it's going to be basically a fact. It's going to be a romp on sex and all kinds of stuff. Right? Is that kind of right?
Yeah. Like I was fascinated by the ignorance of the R. Kelly stuff and all the disgusting things he did to berate women and punish women and kidnap women and child trafficking and all this other stuff that got ignored. And you watch these documentaries and it's painful to watch because you're listening to it. Like they didn't show the videos, but they showed some of the audio and stuff. And it's like, how can a human being do this?
I watched one like that recently, and it was upsetting. And I watched the whole thing. It's like you were talking about reading that book. I knew what you're talking about, but it wasn't about sex. It was called, I can't even say the title. It's got the F-bomb in it, but it's called Don't F with Cats. And I watched that, and that was so upsetting. Did you see it?
I didn't see it.
It's a documentary about a real criminal and it just. But that's like you said. I wouldn't let my wife watch it.
I think getting back to your question, and I think I understand. People want to know what makes other people tick.
Bingo.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why.
Bingo.
That's
it.
I know when I was younger, that was the thing for me about why do people believe certain things?
Right.
Yep.
Why do you think a certain way? And
Yeah, you're right. So we talk about that when we watch movies. When we watch this stuff.
Yeah.
We don't. The one I just mentioned, for me personally, was the most disturbing one I've watched. But
Well, like the Jeffrey Dahmer stuff. When the
I
Jeffrey
can't
Dahmer
watch
thing
that.
came out and everybody was talking about
I
it.
didn't watch it because we were alive when it happened. And I remember seeing the news, reading Newsweek, reading Time, reading the details, seeing the pictures. And it was like, man, I don't want it no more. I don't want it. I knew enough about it. I didn't want to see the recreation.
There's a different level of people who are genuinely interested in, wow, that really happened.
You're right.
Or something like that, like, which is me. Like, I watch some of those things about things that happened in England that we never heard about here.
Absolutely.
And stuff like that. And then there's the people who are like, ooh,
yeah,
Yeah.
let's watch some stuff.
Some of it's to watch it. So, like that book, back to that book. I read it because I want to know. I want to understand how it affects people and how it affects the world around me. I didn't read it as a manual on how to act out.
Right.
And the same thing with that. You want to understand this what happened in the world or this was going on here, but you aren't making a list how to put people in a freezer someplace. So,
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
not saying that there isn't people out there that are doing
No, it's like
that.
Grace said.
Right.
It comes back to what
Your motive.
what makes people tick. What you want to know. Like for a while
You're so shocked at how can a human being
like the Holocaust.
right.
Like how can
'Cause there's
a
evil.
nation of people be brainwashed? Yeah, you want to know because usually, like when you're talking about R. Kelly and stuff, usually when people like us watch this kind of stuff and people that want to know, like you said, what makes these people tick, you're thinking you can't really imagine, you can't understand it. You're like, I just can't put myself there. I don't get it, and that's why you watch it. You're like, help me understand this
Exactly.
and it's. I think that's largely.
And then there's people who like watch all those Saw movies that are incredibly
just-
grotesque, and it's just
That's just kids being stupid. That's when they come out like years ago, they thought horror comics were causing juvenile delinquency. I don't know, maybe it
Right.
was. It's funny because in the 20s and they said, well, this comic books are causing juvenile delinquency, and then they said, well, now it's rock and roll, and then they said, well, now it's these movies, and then now it's porn. And now they got it all in one place.
yeah.
Everything's right here. And I saw a joke on The Simpsons that is funny, but it summarized to this point. It was Homer talking to Krusty the Clown.
Yeah.
And Krusty the Clown was saying, how hard is it to raise kids these days? And the Homer said, oh, it's easy. With the internet, they practically raise themselves. I thought, you know what?
dough there.
No, that's the world. I mean, thank you. That's the state of the world, and it's sad. But you think none of us had to face that when we were kids. We didn't have every single thing at our fingertips that we could, and then
constantly.
and the ability to walk around with a phone and make your own show.
Right. So then take that perspective of a kid or a teenager or whatever, and then let's throw the devil at him.
Yeah.
Oh, this is entertaining.
Well, because you know why? Because my parents don't know what's going on. Every kid is an underdog at
Well,
home.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then they see the devil's an underdog. They're like, yeah, hey, yeah, see, there's nothing wrong with this.
Yeah. But
And-
they really don't understand.
No.
No.
You're right. They don't understand.
Until they experience, like what you said, evil.
Something
Right. Well,
profound.
there again, there's a difference between what you're seeing in media and what is real. And the reality is much worse than what you're seeing in media.
Cheese. For those of you who don't watch this, this is cheese. Jackie brings cheese in here.
You can eat it, it doesn't have
I
to
need a
just
knife
sit
to
there.
cut the
It's
cheese.
only a prop. We're just
No, you don't.
We have to look
No, you're
at
right.
it.
So look at all these. This is the kind of stuff my wife would eat. Stuff with dots in it.
It's bacon.
Oh, I'll eat that.
I was going to say, my brother-in-law in Scotland's probably like, "Ooh, looking at that right now."
Okay.
Send it on
So
over.
you guys go ahead and keep talking. I'm
I got
listening.
you-
a
are you
question.
opening?
I'm going to throw a question at you.
Yeah.
I'm hanging on every word.
Do you think this is all cyclical?
What do you mean? Be specific.
Is there a pattern that every so often in society that these topics come back around?
Yeah, I told you, yes, but they get bigger, badder, and faster. And I told you when we were in my office, we were talking about earlier. I said the part of the Bible that people leave out is or they kind of gloss over it, is the devil sends the beast with wrath, and here it is because he knows the time is short.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's getting bigger and heavier and faster. And so the influence on thinking is, what's available for people to abuse. I mean, if all you have is beer, then we're just going to get people drunk on beer.
Right.
But when you got beer and ecstasy and fentanyl and weed and cocaine and crack, well, hey, we got a lot of stuff now.
It's a party.
Choices.
And so now we've got literature, we got porn, we got when we can condense it all in one place. The enemy has more to work with. So he knows the time is short. He knows it's going to happen. And yes, I do believe it all went in cycles.
Well,
but I believe
I'll
it's the first time we've seen it all together.
Okay.
At once.
But I was going to say, I'll give you an example. Like, it would be, I can go back even earlier in our country's history, but I'll say for the 50s. It was aliens. That's fine.
Yeah.
It was aliens, and everybody was afraid of aliens. And then everybody was afraid we were going to get nuked, so they hid under their desks at school.
The
Yeah,
red
and that'll
scare.
help you.
And that'll save you.
That's right.
We all know that.
Hey, kids, crawl under this kindling wood.
And a
That won't
fetal
hurt you.
position under a school desk is going to save your butt. And then it's zombies, and then it's back to demons and spirituality stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I mean by being cyclical. It looks like it's a cycle, but yes, it's definitely increased now. I mean, we're at a higher peak or more. I don't even have a word for it. It's just more intense, I guess I'd say now.
Do you think it's partially because during COVID everyone was home and they got bored?
No, I think it's because COVID scared the out of everybody.
And now they're just like, well, if that didn't kill me, then what else is out there?
Because think about it, when you're really behind the zombie thing, is COVID some kind of disease that's going to transform you into a drooling pile of mush that walks around.
The one that was based on the video game The Last of Us, that was actually really interesting because it was based on a spore
Right.
in a mushroom, in a fungus.
Yeah.
And
It wasn't biological. It was natural.
it was natural. And technically, it could actually happen if something, I don't know that it would take over the whole world, but that a spore, some kind of fungus would mutate to the point where it would absorb other things. So, like, to me, that was interesting, but it wasn't like this exterior being, this devil coming down and
Well,
Go ahead. I'll
What-
let Drew talk.
Yeah.
things that influence. Okay. Anyone
Sign
that
of the
knows me knows
times.
how. You got to eat a piece of this. My gosh. I am a very anti. I can't say this enough. Conspiracy theorist person.
Yeah.
But even some stuff my wife and I'll be talking about as we're watching TV. And I go, oh, that's stupid. I can't believe somebody would believe that. Blah, blah, blah. But I made a joke the other day because she was reading something and she read it out loud to me. And it was something along the lines, Grace, you can jump in if I'm wrong, but I don't think I'll be wrong for the point of what I said to her. But what I got from what she said was COVID tests that were made in China have traces of COVID in them. And so I said, well, now all we need to do is find out how many people got the vaccine, because since people started getting this vaccine, the world's coming unhinged and there's more mass shootings and people are going nuts. So what are they putting in these vaccines? And I go, that's the real source of it. And then I was joking, but then
Right.
then my brain went, hey, wait a minute. So I don't know. It's just, but the end, there's going to be chaos at the end, and we're not going to be able to identify it. So we have to trust in God. That's it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Bottom line,
Yeah.
Everything we're talking about is based on fear. Whether it's
Uh-huh.
a nuclear thing, and that's what the evil one, that's what that side
That's it.
uses. They feed off of fear. They have to have fear to make people panic. If people are panicked, they have hope, and then they're not afraid anymore. So that's what the whole pain, the whole thing is fear. And that's the biggest thing about COVID. It wasn't the COVID, it was the fear.
True.
And he has had tons of time to watch us and know exactly what makes us cringe.
Yeah, I tell, Satan, people are like, he's not like God. He doesn't know your thoughts, but he's had plenty of years to study people and watch and see what influences us. So, but, I know we're getting close to running out of time. So I guess, we gathered to talk about the emergence of evil and how much it's accelerating in our media. And that cheese is so good.
Oh my goodness!
Hold a piece of that up to the camera. It's got those dots are bacon.
All right.
That's what I'm screaming. I said at first I insulted it and I said it had dots, and then I realized it was a gift from God. It's bacon.
Body by bacon. Yes.
You're awesome,
absolutely.
Jackie. You are awesome. Anyway, so I mean, the takeaway today when I leave here, I think the responsibility we have is in small doses. We can't help the whole world, but you can help who's right in front of you. And it's just, all we do is we keep that momentum going forward, trying to help people understand that. It's weird because if I had to summarize this conversation, I'd say it's about when we see something and we go, oh man, and other people see it and go, all right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
That's where the lines of division are being drawn deep. You're like, wait, why do you think that way? Anyway.
Yeah, I completely agree. We know that we can just click the button and turn it off. And maybe not everybody realizes that or something. They just get drawn into it.
And they start to believe it.
And they start to believe it.
Yeah, that it's real.
That's the problem. That really...
I guess my thing would be Satan is crafty. He's not creative.
That's a good point.
And I don't know why you'd take this. Well, you said the underdog, but why would you take the loser? I mean, I don't understand that. I never understood that.
No, it's an illustration to point out a weak mind and easily influenced person. And from there, I didn't mean I thought he was the underdog. I'm talking about from the perception of a rebellious young person who's already against any authority can see it that way. I don't know, man. I don't because when I was young and rebellious, I was never on board when I was in rock and roll. I mean, that's old people like, I don't want to, I'm going to have devil stuff in the music, and I'm not going to no devil horns, and I even back then, and it's weird because I was drinking and fighting, but no devil stuff. Even when I was younger, and I would talk to dudes like that were in other bands, like the death metal bands, or I call Cookie Monster rock. See if a cookie, they're good enough for me. Cookie. But I'm like, dude, what's with the devils and demons and all that stuff? They're not real. It's a false. What you think when you think evil is powerful, it's not. Wait till you experience real evil.
Right.
Because you see these muscular demons with horns and you think that's not what it is, man. It's being drugged down an alley by a rope with knives stuck in you and parts cut off your body and laughed at and spit on while you feel like you're vomiting out your insides and torn apart. That's evil. You put that on your T-shirts and tell people that's cool because that's what you're going to experience. And they're like, oh, I never really thought about it. No. I'm like, well, you should because it's coming for you, bro. And
that's right.
I don't know. Now I'm getting all preachy.
No, that's okay. That's your job.
Yeah, it is. I guess it is. That cheese is so good. Mark, did you try that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Take it away.
I'll take another piece.
I mean, this is from a movie, but
this is the first time we've ever eaten during a
podcast. I know. We're creating a habit.
Everybody watching is going to be drooling because they want cheese.
Cheese. I mean, this is
bacon.
This is from a movie, but it does give good perspective. There's the Wonder Woman movie, not the second one that was complete crap, but the first one that was actually very good. And she goes to kill the person that she thinks is the god of war because it's the big, strong, strapping guy that's making the plan to kill all the Americans. And it's not. It's the skinny little politician guy in the corner that's been supporting her the whole time. He is the god of war.
Wow. I didn't see it.
And it's like, ooh, I didn't see that.
No,
That's
the devil.
right.
The
You
devil
didn't
doesn't
see
come to
that.
you as the devil comes to you as a friend
Exactly.
and as a comforter.
So on the news, what they say is, "Oh, he was quiet. He kept to himself."
He kept to himself.
They always
Never-
say that. He was quite good. He was
Nice
horrible,
guy,
huh?
yeah.
Yeah, the devil comes to you as a comforter, as a friend, as someone who compliments you, as you know, and subtlety. Like I did this video the other day I posted, and it's subtlety. It's small doses. C.S. Lewis said something like the most sure path to hell is the slow, gradual descent.
Yep.
Because the one people don't realize they're going down, and then they, little by little by little. But now we're to the point, based on the topic of our discussion, where we see it accelerating, but other people are like, "No, I'm totally cool with this."
Yeah. It's okay. It's just
It's
a thing.
normal.
Yeah.
It's normal.
That's normal. All right, what's our closing thoughts? You go first, Jackie. We'll go around the table.
Oh, I agree with Mark that it is cyclical, and I'm curious to see where are we in the cycle? Are we near the peak? Are we at the valley? Is it going to get worse? Is it going to get better? But you just have to stand by your own beliefs, I think. And when you see crap, you just have to turn it off. And when you know something is wrong, you just don't support it. That's me.
Okay, Mark. Final thoughts.
I would address that yeah, I think we're at the peak, only for this reason, because when the spiritual side becomes so blatantly out in the open
Yes.
and not being masked anymore, and actually being celebrated, yeah, we're at a peak at some point. Where's the next step? Are we in the cycle where we're at? I don't know. I agree with you on that. I'm kind
Yeah.
of curious to see what's next. But
Yeah.
Pendulum swing.
the other thing is that anybody that's struggling with anything like that, there's hope out there. I mean, there's people that can help you.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus can help you, but there's people live flesh people that can help you and are willing to help you. So nobody should be in a sense of no hope or concerned about this or afraid of it. It's something that's been around a long time. People have been dealing with it for a long time. Jesus dealt with it a long time ago. So yeah, there's hope in all of that.
Grace.
Yeah, I would have to agree that we need to make our focus more on the good things and not concentrate on despair. Jesus is hope, and Jesus is our comforter, and just focus on that, and things get a little bit easier, right? Yeah.
I would say that to any young people in this topic that think evil is powerful and the music, like all the sex and all the violence and ultimately satanic stuff, that the biggest rebellion in history was a resurrected Jesus Christ, and people converted in one day and then were killed and had their head cut off. You want to join the biggest rebellion in history? Join Christ, because it's still going. It's not stopping, and it's based on truth and not an illusion of power.
Yep.
And it's like I said. I know people that don't agree with me politically, and they don't agree with me on my stance on everything, but they still love Jesus. Right. And I think I would tell anyone that's listening to this, if you're in a dark place, this is the last thing I want to say. When you're in the dark and you're in an attic, your morality and understanding of God, it's like being in an attic with a great big window. And if you let it get a little dirty each day, less light comes in. You don't realize until you're walking around in total darkness that there is no light anymore. And that's the way when you consume media that's destroying you. And I was part of it. I went through all that. So yeah, there is an answer. We're all here. I want to thank Mark. Thank you for coming on. Thank my beautiful wife, Grace. Jackie, as always, for flying the plane. For those of you who don't know what that means, I'm talking about her running the board. I'm Pastor Drew Collins, and this was great. And we've got some cheese to eat. So thank you, and we'll talk to you soon.